So
but the problem is that their conundrum is that the problem, that Pakistan is both a part of the problem and they suspect also a part of the solution, and becoming less and less a part of the solution and more a part of the problem. But I don't think they've reached a stage as yet, as Ambassador Parthasarathy said, where they say no, Pakistan is a problem and not really a solution, and therefore the world needs to get down, sit down with them and say, please look in the mirror and decide once for all whether you're going to fight terror or not.
So, Mr. Hilali, beyond the immediacy of your strategic relationship with the US, which you continue to leverage quite effectively, beyond the immediacy of it, these larger issues continue to haunt you. How do you think this will impact Shuja Pasha's dialogue with the Americans? And in terms of also building a consensus in America, don't you think more and more American analysts will also ask how they can do business with a man and a government who have blood on their hands? I mean, this is very fundamental here. What happens to the fundamental question, Mr. Hilali?
Well, let me begin by addressing a concern that Lisa Curtis said about Pakistan and Raymond Davis and not doing enough, or implying not doing enough. The amount of pressure that the government of Pakistan has taken on the Raymond Davis thing, I don't think the Americans quite realize it. They're prepared to set it aside as just an incident and move on. No, I'm sorry. Nobody wants to set it aside and move on. Nobody wants to set aside the fact that drones came and knocked out 44 innocent people. In fact, 44 people who were planning what they should do next to clear the area of the Taliban. You can't just dismiss this out of hand and say, oh, well, it doesn't suit us to take that into consideration.
No,
come on, get
Mr.
real.
Hilali.
Now, the second thing is this. Look, listen, let me do the talking. Don't keep interrupting me, mister. I like you as a person. But sometimes, the way you conduct debates, I think is very unfair.
No, I wanted to draw you back to the Tahawwur Hussain Rana issue.
To talk about that. I am coming back to the Rana. We are talking about terror. You're talking about Mumbai. You are talking about Mumbai and terror, and you're talking about Pakistan's assistance. And you're putting us and saying, here we are, the worst rogue states going. Let me tell you that in that case, why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? Why don't you see what your hospitals are doing in Afghanistan? Why don't you see what your visa officer, Mr. Brandy, is doing there? Why don't you see Robert Singh, who passes himself off as Farooq Shah and actually has given $2.3 million to go and fight against Pakistan?
You're again digressing, Mr. Hilali.
Why are you forgetting? And I'm not giving you secret information. I'm not giving you secret. This is published in the news. For God's sake, get a grip on yourself. Don't see things in a one-sided way. Now, we want the people behind 2611 court. We want them to be taken to court. We want them to be crucified, because we know that these sort of people have killed many more of us than they have killed of you. So please, things have changed in Pakistan. This is not the 90s. This is not the early 2000s. Things have changed. You've got to keep abreast of events. You cannot bring the past and judge us by that. And Mr. Parthasarathy has a very glib response for everything that is happening, and saying Copenhagen and this and that. These are very fundamental issues. And let me tell you, we have taken more action against these people than you would have given us credit for, including the United States.
I think, as Mr. Hilali,
Mr.
Hilali,
cannot simply ignore things that have happened.
Mr. Hilali, I tonight will not get provoked by the wonderful things you're saying about me and the wonderful things that Christine has said tonight about Indians hyperventilating, etc. I will just respond with one cold fact. History will judge America by its silence on David Coleman Headley. Despite knowing of Headley's role in 2611, they allowed Headley to travel to India many months after that incident, and they were silent on it. Hence, India will of course question Pakistan, but it will question America for remaining silent on the cold facts regarding 2611. It will judge America's intentions by its actions. But Mr. Parthasarathy, we keep going back to this issue. Therefore, tonight my question to you is, some legal experts say, become a party to the case. You say the Chicago case, the New York case, Indians have been killed.
Is your
Become party to the case.
Of statements made by Mr. Rana. That's what it's dispute. There is no impunity. There is no tolerance of this. And if you were paying attention to any of the reportage, you would know that part of this Raymond Davis imbroglio was because of the CIA's efforts to actually set up a cell in Lahore to take action against them unilaterally. So this particular drama that you're establishing over very tenuous statements that are not backed up by actual evidence or proof, it's really kind of tiresome. There are much more important discussions to be had about the joint threat that the Americans and the Indians see around Lashkar-e-Taiba. And the other thing that is quite tiresome in this discussion is that you seem utterly indifferent to reality. And that is that as long as the United States and the international community remains engaged in Afghanistan in a counterinsurgency footing, we are, to a very significant extent, dependent upon Pakistan for those logistics.
You're saying there are compulsions America has.
You do not have troops in Afghanistan.
You're saying there are compulsions America has.
You do not appreciate the logistical demands that this reality places upon
those are
the US.
America's compulsions.
In fact, the diminished political space that actually exists to do things, of the kinds of things that would make you happy. But when you do not have troops on the ground in Afghanistan, for you, this is a hypothetical discussion on how you can have your cake and eat it too.
No, it's a very real discussion.
The reality is the United States has to work with Pakistan despite the fact that we have some very different strategic visions for how the region should operate. And that's just the reality, whether you like it or not. That's the reality. The war in Afghanistan needs to be supplied. And there's really only one route through which that war gets supplied. So if you have a different idea, I'm sure the White House would like to hear it.
No, I just have 2 points to make, Christine. I'm glad you're still smiling. I'm just saying 2 things tonight.
I'm always
Two things are this. Obama stands before the Indian Parliament and makes a promise. Now, you cannot make that promise and then turn around on it. And secondly, these are America's strategic compulsions.
But you're making
these are America's strategic compulsions, American problems.
Untenable and even absurd. The fact is, the United States takes Lashkar-e-Taiba very, very seriously. But we have 2 issues right now: the war in Afghanistan, which requires logistical resupply through Pakistan. You can't get around that. And B, everyone has very significant concerns about Pakistan's nuclear weapons program. This means that the kinds of things that might satisfy you, which would involve very punitive approaches, will have very limited appeal.
I understand. You're basically
across
saying
our interagency process, who have multiple concerns to deal with, namely trying to secure visibility into Pakistan's nuclear program, continuing Pakistani cooperation on the resupply of a war that is incredibly unpopular in the region, and then the very real issue that long after this Afghanistan conflict resolve itself in whatever way it will be, Lashkar-e-Taiba remains. And so here we are trying to deal with the immediate term issues surrounding the terror in Afghanistan.
And India's immediate concern tonight. I understand, Christine, you're making the point. Basically, I get your point, Christine, you're saying, I understood your point. You're saying even if we know what Pakistan is up to and what they have done, if we have details of it, if we know the complicity that some of our renegade, CIA agents had as complicit partners in 2016, even if we know anything, sorry, we can't do anything about it. All that India knows tonight is that Tawar Hussain Rana has said in an Illinois court,
it's really unprofessional. You have a show, so act like a proper show.
Thank you very much for your advice. I'm just making a clear point to you tonight. I want Mr. Parthsarthi to come in. Tonight, all that Indians know
but the issue is yes, you seem to think that Americans are buffoons and we don't know what's going on.
That is the adjective you choose to use, Christine.
That's why we had the whole that's why we had the entire Raymond Davis and imbroglio in the first place.
Christine.
But the fact is, because of our current geostrategic requirements for Pakistan, no matter what the truth is, and I assure you, Americans are not indifferent or unknowledgeable, there's limits to what we can do given the prevailing circumstances.
Christine, I understand. I think you're being so candid tonight. I must thank you for it, because what you're saying is no matter what the truth is, we're not going to do anything about it. Mr. Parthsarthi, where is this going to go now? What should India do in its national interest?
Firstly, I think let us be very, very clear. We have at present, even according to the Americans, the most anti-Indian army chief the Americans have ever known, in General Ashfaq Parvez Kiani. It was after Musharraf left that the terrorist attack on Kabul took place in our embassy, and then that was followed by 26/11. So as long as the likes of Kayani are around, and that's why I spare the likes of Zafar and his Prime Minister from this, as long as the likes of Kayani are around, we're going to have a problem of terrorism. The Americans are also going to have a problem of terrorism in Afghanistan with the Pakistani backing for the Taliban. And let me tell Mr. Hilali that thanks to this backing, which is extremist Sunni groups, his fellow Shias are getting killed all over Pakistan. So that is the reality of the situation. Now, as far as India is concerned, what I am saying is, we have to deal with the Americans. They are a superpower, and get the maximum and the best we can from them. Our interests will not totally coincide. But we do not, unlike the Pakistanis, depend on the Americans with a begging bowl in our hand for arms and for arms, ALMS. Now, therefore, the fact is, unfortunately, I feel our government is yielding too much to American pressure, especially on our relations with Pakistan. The Mohali episode was one classic case, and I would hope, and so I think that's shameful.
Yes,
I think we are more seriously trying to put 26/11 behind us. And I think the message should go equally to our government that we have neither forgotten nor forgiven 26/11. Headley will go on, Rana will go on, the Americans are going to stay on in Afghanistan for a very long time. But I am convinced the way Pakistan is punching above its weight, the ordinary people of Pakistan are going to suffer very heavily for the adventurism and short-sightedness of the likes of Kayani and Shuja Pasha.
Mr. Patsati, Mr. Hilali, I'm going to thank you both at this stage. The question goes to the government of India. Should we file an appeal? Should we become party in this case? Christine Fair, I'm going to have to thank you, and KC Singh as well. This really becomes India's concern. As one of our guests from Washington said, Christine Fair, even if America knows the truth, there are geostrategic reasons why it won't act. What are the geostrategic reasons that would ensure that we remain quiet on this? Where's the aggressive diplomacy? We follow that story and see what the Indian government does on